The Acolyte came out to predictable reviews in every sense of the word. Obviously, with it being
arguably the gayest Star Wars,
the critics were always going to love it, and with it being trash, the audience wasn't. This sort of divide isn't unusual between the critics and the audience, and in fact, we've seen similar things before. What's most interesting to me, though, it's not the reviews themselves, it's the media response to it. You see the engine of corporate media start grinding forwards to start spinning narratives, desperately trying to make excuses for it.
I love movies! I love making them! And I am a fan of movies.
The aim is to make the show look as if it's moving forwards, fixing problems of the past, or as an incredibly deep intellectual piece of media that those kind of common plebs, they just don't understand. As we get stories like, it fixes lazy parts of Star Wars canon. Yeah, the original Star Wars was always crap. It was lazy. But now you've got the talented people involved, they're solving those issues. How everything in it is actually incredibly nuanced, even a guy getting his kit off. Or maybe pure evil is just the correct path after all. And as with anything in life, they're all done to a different degree of competency, which is why some of them just resort to making up their own fantasy world. We don't know what the final ratings will look like in the end, but we can confirm The Acolyte is doing well, and that this success really does imply that the poor fan reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic are most likely just review bombing by dissatisfied fans. If we'd stopped there, it might have been accurate. Yes, all of those reviews came in because they were dissatisfied with the quality of the product that they had. Unfortunately, that's not the main story though, is it? Fans who don't like the show because of its messages, most of them probably haven't even seen it. Oh, absolutely, those critics, those are altogether better human beings. The critics are in agreement. It has amazing potential. That's great. Those fans, though, they just haven't seen it. Because like you'd expect with a Star Wars fan, they wouldn't watch a Star Wars show. I'm not exactly sure of the IQ of this writer, but I have a feeling I have a chance to hit it on a dartboard.
What are you going to do to stop the crazies?
All of this media focus, the rolling of stories, is designed to drown out the normal people, to put forwards a false impression that actually this series is doing great. Disney's doing great. And it may even work. It won't make you any money, but it may drown out the common peasants. I don't really know what that's meant to achieve apart from making Disney feel better about itself. Maybe fooling some investors that their stock price shouldn't go down. But for most people who are actually interested in Star Wars, no, it's definitely the audience reviews they will want to pay attention to. People similar to themselves. Of course, the media losing relevancy has thought of that too, because all the time they're not just making up random stories about things that could barely just about be interpreted from the show. They are indeed coming out and attacking the viewers and their comments as simply racist trolls. Yes, they're twisting her words from 5 years ago, and this kept on across other articles. Did the Acolyte star really say the show's goals was to cause white people crying? Well, I don't know. Why don't we look at the tweet where it says it? Amanda Stanberg, who is the lead actress of the new series, says it was the goal. Nobody said it was about the Acolyte though, did they? Like your supposed fact check insinuates. We know it wasn't about the Acolyte because at the start of the clip, he says,
when people watch The Hate You Give, what do you want?
When people watch The Hate You Give, there's the name of the pissing show in the clip itself. Oh, these Star Wars fans really are stupid, aren't they? They can't even grasp it as about a different show. You're the only person that thinks it wasn't. And that's how all these articles seem to be. They come across as disingenuous. Like you're desperately trying to convince people, presumably to try and make them watch the show. But then they'll see the show, and they'll see what it's like. Why all of this seems a bit redundant. It doesn't matter if you don't like the audience reviews. It doesn't matter if you think you can get people to ignore it and watch it for themselves. It won't change the quality of the finished product.
The evidence against her is strong.
Yes, one guy in a bar said she did it.
Attack me with all your strength.
And no amount of articles will make it seem like it's got nuance or layered narratives, like you're seemingly trying to convince people that it was. My favourite example of this is the Acolyte shirtless scene. Tells us everything we need to know about Yord. I bet it does. When I saw he had a six-pack, that's all I needed to know about him. No, this article is, I buy those top shelf magazines, but I only buy them for the articles. Unironically. And I do half wonder if this is just the female author's attempt to go, I'm not like those men folk. No, when I like it, it's for the art.
We leave in 5 minutes.
I will redeem myself.
Yord, put your clothes on.
Hard to start coming up with arguments why men shouldn't have this stuff in movies when you actually quite like it yourself, isn't it? But it's all based around this random shirtless scene that had absolutely no point. We know it had absolutely no point when the author of this article, who's going to try and defend it, says the lack of his shirt seemed initially pointless. How many times did you have to rewatch it in order to come up with a reason? I would love to know. But it does serve a purpose. Not because he's shirtless, but he was doing it with his robe specifically. And as anybody knows, you can't put one set of clothes in the washing machine while wearing another one. What are you, made of money? No, Yoda has actually broken records within Star Wars, as this is the first Jedi confirmed to do his own laundry. This really is a woman-centric show, isn't it? We're gonna have next mopping. But this reveals his priorities, giving him a clear view of his character. Actually, him getting topless is nuanced. This is a layered character design. Yord is one of the Jedi who carries a yellow lightsaber. Don't worry, we'll get back to that one. And while some fans have already dubbed themselves the Yord Horde, it's like a Mongol invasion with a blue rinse. They can defeat entire regions not through force, but by everyone clearing out because no one can be bothered to deal with them. Oh, they're coming over here. I'll leave. Take what you want. But while the actor dreaded the scene and questioned whether it was necessary, Leslie Headland made him go through with it. Maybe she's just trying to balance out what she did in previous jobs. But no, this was actually about the steaming of his robes. It was preparing his day and being the best presented Jedi he could be. This subtext of the scene didn't objectify Yord. Not like those men folk do. This is a woman-centric show. We can't have them getting their kit out. Oh, what do you want this show to be? Entertaining? This was showing an aspect of his character. Determination. Preparedness. Ultimately, Yord's brief shirtless scene is revealing in more than one sense of the word. It's significant because it shows the character's priorities, telling us more about him than would have happened if set up differently. Kendall, you could have just said you liked his abs. It's fine. I got some popcorn and didn't bother with the salt because the drool would have washed it off anyway. You can say you liked it and be like, okay, we'll get some knockers out as well. It's fine. But instead, we get four-dimensional chess to desperately try and go, no, I didn't find him attractive. Oh, look at him though. The Yord Horde. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you need to be ashamed of this opinion. I mean, the blokes didn't care about it. They were like, "Way!" They're going feral for the steamy shirtless scene. I just thought it was interesting to highlight how two people try and excuse their behaviour. One of them tries to make up some twisted BS in order to preserve their power, while actually going, I did quite like that. And the other side is just honest.
You stupid woman with your weird child!
But of course, the Acolyte is shallow as a duck's backside, and so all of these attempts to make it seem deep fail. We have to desperately try and give ourselves some kind of air of superiority, because the show definitely doesn't have one. Even the show's creators don't seem to be pretending that it has one, which is why the fans of this show genuinely have to write into it more than the creators did themselves. That's why we get farcical articles. Things like, why the Acolyte's most by-the-book Jedi Knight wields a yellow lightsaber. The Acolyte. What is the meaning of yellow lightsabers? Oh, the colour reflects the skill or disposition of the Jedi. It's assumed it means Jedi who seek to find balance between the light and the dark side of the Force, when in reality we know that him having a yellow lightsaber is just because of this.
Purely aesthetic.
Person's fighting this person. Will it be more interesting for them to have this color or this color?
All that effort, all that time, all that mental capacity to come up with theories and meanings about, oh, look, he read this. Isn't it really deep? The Acolyte is such an incredible show. The story is so complex. But what you're really enjoying about it is coming up with things yourself. It's your own imagination that you're projecting onto the show. You are the ones giving it the complexity.
Every time over the course of my life, I have sat there and figured out ways to attribute specific colors to specific characters is blowing my mind.
Purely aesthetic.
The depth, the layers, the plot. You're imagining that these characters have actual personalities, and then you find out that the showrunner's like, nah, it's just not that deep, is it?
It's like an aura, kind of.
Yeah, I feel like at least I've made that excuse in my head.
And I've said it myself, with this show, it's so kind of...
Yeah.
It just kind of exists for a bit. That I had fun reviewing it because I was making my entertainment from kind of the base layer. Because it is just kind of a boring, monotonous tone. You can kind of make out of it whatever you want. And a lot of the press are just building stories out of it that simply don't exist, except inside their own heads. And that's why we saw that same interviewer who asked the question look so disappointed when she found out.
Every time over the course of my life, I have sat there and figured out ways to attribute specific colors to specific characters is blowing my mind.
Because she thought all of this stuff had more complexity than it actually did, and found out you should never meet your heroes and ask them those questions. What she got enjoyment from was the theory crafting, rather than the actual reality of what was planned out at all. And I think you have to kind of do that, because when you actually analyze the plot itself, it's really horrific. It is literally preaching evil as the way to be. And some people have noticed, Star Wars' incredible new Jedi Master proves that the Sith Code is true. That's not a good thing. Did you know that actually evil is the right moral way to be? Isn't a good message. The Sith Code insists that peace is a lie. They view peace as weakness and stagnation. And the Jedi of the Acolyte prove the Sith are right. And you're like, well, that's a horrific message then, isn't it? Leslie Headland says the evil villains are the good guys. Not an unexpected message, but, you know, it's definitely one you can take from the Acolyte. Even this, though, I wonder if we're projecting this onto the story. It could simply be just bad script writing. And so he swallowed the poison because it's the only way they could think to actually get past his defenses.
We thought we were doing the right thing. Forgive me.
It could be that they never intended to go, oh, actually, if he believed her, that would make him a Sith. That it's not actually morally grey to do any of this stuff. They've just got morality wrong and it's evil. Many of the things they're pointing to is, oh, it proves this, could just be incompetence. Like when we give them praise for many things, one scene in The Acolyte fixed the lazy part of the Star Wars canon, where basically it's trying to argue that in The Acolyte, the Trade Federation just want to grill, but it's actually the Jedi that come in, piss them off, and then cause the problems in the future in the prequels. Now, we just forget this line from The Acolyte itself.
Their grease grubbers are disposable.
Oh yeah, human beings and sentient creatures don't matter. Oh, but my stock, that matters more. The living creatures are disposable, but my money isn't. I'm sorry, mate. These are the people you want to push as having dealt with a century of pushy bureaucrats and nosy space cops that would make anyone angry.
Their grease grubbers are disposable.
You want to side with the deliberately evil people who don't care about sentient creatures' lives and instead care more about their cargo. They're the people you identify with, are they? All it takes is a subtle push from Palpatine for conflict after that. Yeah, the last thing that you should have to deal with as a trader is a cop enforcing the law of doing things like trying to preserve the lives of people you're shoving on the outside of spaceships because you don't care about them, you care about your cargo. But it's definitely the Trade Federation, not the Jedi, that are good guys in the scenario we saw. Right.
What I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it.
They even say that the mechanics do exist doing a very dangerous job fixing on the outside of a spaceship. So the Republic stopped this so that humans don't have to take the risk. Although you could just argue that this is an example of the Republic taking jobs away from people and giving them to robots. Yeah, those people may be dying on the outside of the spaceship, or at least they haven't been taken over by self-service checkouts. Yes, we know you're dying, but at least you've got a job. The Trade Federation did nothing wrong.
And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil.
Oh, and of course, they have a problem with the tropes of their character design being ethnic stereotypes. Because of course they do. That's what they think of them, rather than what was actually intended. They don't realize the problem is them. They never do. And of course, if you think any of these are a problem with The Acolyte, have you considered that Leslie Headland also wants to get her hands on the Knights of the Old Republic as well, starting with Kreia? This is the era that I'm most invested in, because I got most of my interest from the games themselves, both single player and the MMO, so I know Kreia. Leslie Headland couldn't write a character like that if she pissing tried.
Can you spare a few credits?
Giving him what he has not earned is like pouring sand into his hands. What if by surviving another day he brings a greater darkness upon another? By giving him something he has not earned, perhaps all you have helped him become is a target. Seeing another elevated often brings the eyes of others who suffer. Be careful of charity and kindness, lest you do more harm with open hands than with a clenched fist. Use your power, but in its proper place.
And would have absolutely no idea to start with taking on the actual one. So luckily, all of this talk about start writing emails, start crowdfunding. Love, after they see the reaction to The Acolyte, I don't think you're going to have to worry about getting another Star Wars job. Although she did say she wanted multiple seasons of The Acolyte, where she said she wanted to do at least 3 seasons. And although if she had the opportunity, she'd love to keep doing it forever. I'd worry about swinging that first before you start banging on about what you're going to do to Kreia. Because Disney came out with their viewing figures of 4.8 million views in the first day of streaming for The Acolyte. Not The Acolyte premiere, not The Acolyte episode 1. With that, I can only assume they're banging both of them together and then just giving us one number. 4.8 million. Something interesting about that, though. We have Doctor Who numbers of Gatwa, who also released 2 episodes back to back, and he got 2.6 and 2.4, which combined, they'd be 5 million. The overnights for the Doctor Who premiere, they beat The Acolyte. Doctor Who, obviously known as a flop. Incredibly low ratings for the series, and of course, Doctor Who ratings are overnight on the BBC in the UK, not even America, let alone Disney, which contains the world, all of their subscribers. And you still got beaten by people that still watch TV in the UK and have the license fee. It just doesn't seem like a massive hit to me, especially when you're spending $22.5 million per episode. There's a lot of people that have to subscribe just for this show.
And they're going to boycott Disney?
They already are.
Calling it Blasts On. Biggest series premiere, not episode, on Disney Plus this year. It got more than Echo. Yay. I thought I'd forgotten about Echo, but no, you had to force me to bring it up again. That's how good Echo was. They don't generally release viewership data, but this time, they're really desperate for viewers. They're like, we need you to come and watch this show. Look, it's doing amazing. People just keep pouring in to watch it, and then when they do, well, they don't like it, do they? Yeah. All those fans that we keep bragging about, how many of them are going to see it, they're really quite annoying, aren't they, those fans? Yeah, we'd actually prefer if we had lower viewer numbers, so we wouldn't have to watch this thing among the peasants. And if you could just give me the streamer so that I could be first and feel my own sense of self-importance without giving it to the commoners. I think I'd quite like it. Commoners, can you turn off the television? I'd like to be the only person that's ever seen this series so I can feel special and unique. Turns out that might actually not be that far from the case. Financial analyst calls Star Wars The Acolyte's global viewership pathetic and explains that only about 3% of the Disney subscribers watched. The funniest thing about that is, what kind of numbers do we have to actually compare it against? Is 3% good? Is 3% enough for a show to actually continue? Maybe all the other shows only get 1%. Well, we do have a bar that comes from the creators of these shows themselves. Do you remember that glorious little actor strike where they all basically killed their own industry? Well, those screenwriters, after they'd got most of them fired from their jobs, got a few little benefits and some juicy bonuses. One of those bonuses was a new model for residuals, where the bigger the viewership, the more the screenwriter got paid. This new contract promises to compensate screenwriters for a high-budget title that is considered a success. And what is the percent of viewership which you have to hit in order for your show to be considered a success and get that bonus? Well, that would be defined as 20% of the domestic subscribers to a streaming service. 20%, not 3. Congratulations on the success, Disney. The reality of the situation is, no matter how much corporate media try to spin their wheels for you, desperately trying to make out that this is some really complicated media, the numbers don't lie. And money really is what matters in business, not
arguably the gayest Star Wars.
Not unless you're filming it and putting it out on adult DVDs anyway. And that's why none of the tactics works. It's like water off a duck's back. You can't just make this stuff up and expect anyone to internalize it when it's obviously not true. When it's such old, ignorant, poorly thought out tactics. I know they think they're being incredibly smart and witty and I've got you here. But this isn't an internet debate that you can just steamroll over. And especially not when you're just so obviously outclassed. No one hates Star Wars like Star Wars fans. You're like a 5-year-old down a school playground yelling at some ducks. I can't believe them fans don't like Star Wars. You don't even stop to question why. No, these fans, they just make up reasons not to watch it. Couldn't be that they're observing something and making conclusions from it. No.
I don't care. Why'd you ask?
Fans of the IP actually like it, but they're coming up with reasons not to watch it just to spite themselves for some reason. Did you have to calm down halfway down this article and rearrange your tinfoil hat? Most of which are based on pretty much total projection. Yeah, all of the problems they've got with this series, they actually have them what? Actually, they think the Sith are the good guys and the evil guys are the Jedi. No, that Leslie Headland has said this. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. Thanks, mate, for telling me what I can do. Cancel your Disney Plus subscription if you care so much. If you care about Star Wars, cancel your Disney Plus subscription. Pick a lane. Stop arguing with yourself.
Just means that our stories are worth telling, and I think the success review-wise of our film shows that our stories are worth telling.
If you don't want to see The Acolyte, pluck out your eyes. Or just, don't stream it. I feel like there could be a healthy middle ground there of maybe watch it and give your opinion on the media. For the normal people in the audience. Star Wars fans make it a personality trait to make it clear over and over again that they haven't enjoyed anything in the Star Wars franchise in decades and nitpick absolutely every detail. And I'll have you know, as somebody that nitpicks over every single detail, if you don't like my videos, you could just simply, not stream them. You don't have to watch. I am able to simply not watch things that don't appeal to me instead of complaining about people in my shows. Congratulations on being boring, but I find Hollywood hilarious. And as the entire industry decides that they are going to burn themselves to the ground, as an Englishman, I find it almost my duty to stand on a mountainside, point, and go,
Ha ha! I think he broke his leg. I said ha ha!
But I do want to congratulate you, the gamer, on thinking that for some reason I need your permission to do literally anything. They're not sending their best. Nor is, Gizmodo. And that's kind of the problem. Oh, they love to talk about projecting. Well, they're projecting. They love to talk about nitpicking details. By the way, you're actually admitting that there are things wrong with the show when you say that. People can pick out all of these problems that you can't refute and come up with complex reasons about how this show is so deep and meaningful. But they don't have anything to back it up. The best twist of The Acolyte was right in front of us the whole time. Yeah, and everyone knew it. You're really telling me that that is the best twist of the show? The thing that everybody knew when they cut to the spaceship and she was acting differently, or sooner. Leslie Headland herself came out and said, the Acolyte twist, I thought it'd leak much sooner. And I'm like, sooner than what? They believed it would leak long before the series premiere. Yes, and it did. We had a trailer which told you the different characters' names in the subtitles. Whoops, you leaked that one yourself. And then there were cast interviews where they were just talking about Amandla, asking her, what was it like to play two twins? Isn't it weird that you were playing two twins? The only reason I wasn't surprised and commented on it is because I already knew it from the trailers that were talked about long before. They're like, oh, nobody knew before the premiere. What do you mean? Everybody knew. I didn't even know it was meant to be a secret. It was that open. It was meant to be a twist, let alone the best one.
You are poor, so you will like this.
If anything, Trinity dying in the first scene was a far bigger twist. And so after all this, The Acolyte, it doesn't really have anything else. It's got no more cards left to play. The only thing it's got now is messaging to hammer home, which is why these shows always get worse. Because they set up a premise and some people think, this has promise. And then they find out the answer and realize it doesn't. Like in Ahsoka, where she was willing to risk having the entire galaxy destroyed by Thrawn, just so she could travel to a different galaxy and tell a bloke that she just wanted to be friends, and then let him go back to a different galaxy again. That's the kind of plot complexity we're dealing with here. The Acolyte is a cop show in disguise, and it's the perfect genre for Star Wars expansion. Have you ever wanted cops in space? With the worst script and the most obvious plot lines you can create. He was poisoned. Are there any apothecaries nearby here that could make the poison?
It had to have come from nearby. Is this the only apothecary in town?
It is.
That guy over there. Yeah, he's across the road, and we've never seen him before. He's new in town. I wonder if he did it.
That's not our regular guy. I don't know who that guy is.
Did we bring him back to the ship or questioning?
The Acolyte is a cop show for retard. Daphne Keane even came out and said, what I really like about my character is he reminds me of a musician, David Bowie. We're bringing David Bowie to Star Wars! Yay! I wonder where we got our inspiration from. As soon as I put on the makeup, I went to Leslie and said, this is David Bowie. And she said, oh my god, you're right. No one thought we should change it. No, the David Bowie alien. We've even got how Ezra Miller from Wish makes me want to join the dark side. Oh, what I really like about him is he's so complicated. Oh, he's morally flexible. No, he's just evil, love. It's not that complicated or deep. And we've reached a point now where even the actors, when they're like, oh, well, your casting for the Acolyte was inspired by your role in Squid Game? And he's like, what? Why? Who would look at Squid Game and go, that's a Jedi? I was quite surprised because I feel the two characters are so very different. I was curious about what made her feel that way. I had to think about what she even saw of me from Squid Game. We even have Forbes with The Critics Must Be Crazy. The Acolyte is another mediocre show because the critics love it. But I must be living in an alternate universe reading these. One where being a critic no longer requires you to be critical, but rather rewards you for simply liking the right things and disliking the wrong things. Because that's all this really is. We don't have principles, we have goals. And the Acolyte marches towards those goals. The Acolyte is what we want in the future. We think the entire world should be just like this. This IP embodies what we want the future to be, with the creators that we want all companies to be filled with under the Disney brand, the corporate behemoth, which all companies should want to be. It's the same dynamic as anything else. It's not good because of what it does. It's good because of what it is. Just like in the show, they'll see people as good or evil, not based on what they do, but based on what they are, based on their characteristics and the boxes that they tick. This is why the media loves to talk, oh, you're just rejecting. No, you are. Oh, you're making excuses. No, you are. Because I don't believe that you watched The Acolyte and thought, this is amazing. But for everything else, there's no. But for everyone else who does need a bit of complexity, it's not in the show, and they seem to realize it. Which is why we're coming up with the complex new stories, why we're trying to put depth in it where it just doesn't exist, why we're coming up with reasons why it seems more complicated. So they can sit there in their ivory towers and go, no, you just don't like it because you can't comprehend it. But I can. I'm an artist. I appreciate the unique spectacle of the art that just goes over your head. But all of this forgets one thing, and that to shame the audience, they have to respect you. If somebody already sees you as beneath them and you try and come across as superior, it comes across as laughable. Which is why all of the random attacks, the slurs and the insults just don't land. Like, you're writing articles to insult people, but you should hear what I'd say about you giving off the chads.
You would make a good Dalek.
Because then you might understand why I don't care about your slurs. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe more videos like this in the future. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.